Hello everyone, thanks for tuning in today. We are here with Zsofi today, and it's a very interesting discussion we will have today, as we will compare two roles, the paralegal roles in-house and paralegal role in a law firm. So yeah, I wanted to invite Zsofi because I thought she'd have a great insight into law firm work and how you get into law firm, like the process, how you get into paralegal roles. And on the other hand, I am working in-house in a tech company, so I will give quite a good insight into that side of the job. So thank you, Zsofi, for joining today. And
thank you for having me.
yeah, and yeah, if you want to start giving an introduction about yourself, and then we'll get into the various questions and topics.
Thank you so much for having me. Hello everyone, this is my very first live, so I'm a little bit nervous. But as just an overall introduction, my name is Zsofi and I run the Instagram account called Paralegally Speaking, which kind of aims to give you an insight into what paralegal life at a national law firm is actually about, all the highs, all the lows, and the in-betweens as well. A little bit about me is my early life is I've come from Hungary. I lived and was born in Budapest, and I moved to the UK when I was 10 years old, so just during the last financial crisis we moved out, and I didn't know any English words when I moved to the UK. I could just about say my name and introduce myself to people, and that was it. And then from year 6 onwards, I just kind of built and developed my knowledge of the language. And when I was about in year 9, year 10, I would say, I used to love getting into a bit of a debate with my RE teacher. And once he made a comment on one of the essays I wrote saying I would make a great lawyer. And it was like a light bulb moment, thinking, oh my God, I would love to do that. Yeah. And then I started to pursue law, and I went to the University of Swansea to study it. From then on, I was always set. I knew someone who worked as a Mackenzie friend in the courts, and helped people who were going through divorces, etc. And I thought that was the route that I wanted to go down on, until I managed to get some work experience at a firm in Cardiff, which is a high street regional firm. They only have one office, but they act regionally. And I sat within their corporate law department, and that was really, really interesting. Initially, when they told me they've got a seat for me in the corporate department to do work experience, I just thought, oh my God, this is not what I want to go into, but I'll just do it anyway. It's great on my CV. And then I ended up loving it and went back to the firm as paralegal. So that's how I became a banking and finance paralegal. I've since left that firm in Cardiff, and I now work at Shoosmiths in the banking and finance department in Reading.
Yeah. It's very, very interesting journey. Yeah. So guys, I will share for the first time my journey actually this time. So it's because it's a more of a cross interview, so it's gonna be fun and interesting. Yeah. So well, you know me. My name is Daniele. I'm from Italy. I was born in Italy in a city called Trieste, which is basically in the northeastern part of Italy, bordering with Slovenia, and very close to Austria. And it's a very, very interesting story, because I didn't know I wanted to become a lawyer until probably late in my degree, like in my bachelor's degree. But it all started when I worked in an international tourist area near Venice. I've met lots of foreign people. I was having fun, and I was my English was not that good, but I was very interested in learning, improving my English, and interacting with foreigners was great. So I thought, okay, maybe it's a good idea to try studying abroad. I was quite nervous and scared at that time because in Italy is like English language is taught, but not at university level. You know what I mean? Like it's not at academic level what you learn. So
Yeah.
I had to prepare. I had to take exams, English exams. I remember it was the IELTS with the British school. I failed once because my English was pretty bad. And the second time I passed, then I could get an unconditional offer from the University of Groningen in the Netherlands, where I moved and studied international and European law. Because at that time I thought I wanted to go quite for a broad choice, let's say. So I thought, okay, maybe I can work in the United Nations. Was very ambitious at the time, or European Commission. So I didn't have very clear what I wanted to do exactly, but yeah, I moved there. I studied, and since I was self-funding myself, I had to work on the side of my studies. So I worked in various restaurants. It was an interesting experience. And later in around my second, third year, I thought, but maybe I don't really like international law that much. I was more attracted to subjects of business law and the relation with companies and things like that. So eventually I chose to take the path of qualifying as a lawyer in the United Kingdom. And I chose to do an LLM in corporate and financial law in Scotland, which was a way to access the legal market in the UK in an I would say in an affordable way because unfortunately England is very, very expensive.
It's difficult when you're an international student, isn't it? It's very difficult.
And also I didn't have anyone telling me how to approach these moves, because I wanted to qualify as a lawyer, but from abroad I didn't have any contacts, and it was a bit late to, let's say, to network, to establish contacts late in my third year, because that's when I started applying for this LLM. So eventually I just moved to Scotland, and there I found all this situation of this environment, the UK legal environment of training contracts. And another word opened to me. I was, oh my God, okay, this is very competitive. This is going to be very tough. So
quite daunting when you first look into it. I remember my first the first time I sent a first ever training contract application off, and I was so naive. I literally wrote,
me too.
I'm not joking, this is bad. It was like 2 or 3 lines, and they requested like 250 words. And I was like, oh, this is enough. Like, my grades speak for themselves, and I had really good grades, and it was... And now I look back and I think, oh my God, what was I thinking?
Same. Yeah, exactly. That's what I thought. Okay, it's just a job, I just apply with my CV. But there's no need to put much. I mean, maybe actually they like it that you are brief and straight to the point. Just I want to be a lawyer. I like this job. I want to be. But then I realized, okay, you actually need to put like an incredible effort, and you need to research law firms, and you need to network. You need to have contacts with people. So here we are. So
I guess that leads on to how did you become a paralegal where you are at the moment?
So during my LLM, well, I was still working in as a bartender, a waiter, and things like that. But I had the time to apply to some legal jobs before my graduation. So I had the opportunity to apply. I tried both in Scotland and in England because I just wanted to get into the legal field, and I think that's what most law students want. They just want to make the first step into the legal field and
get your foot in the door.
I think that makes sense, because you need experience, you need to try different things, and often is very, I mean, it's very difficult to choose what you are going to do. Sometimes you get an offer and either you take it or you are unemployed. So what do you do?
Yeah, absolutely.
So sometimes you get in a place where you didn't want to get, maybe, but I would say take it because it's all experience, and eventually you can change and try different things on the way.
That is
so
true, because when I went and I did my corporate work experience, and then I was in touch with the law firm, so that was in November of my last year at university, and then I got in touch with them around February time, asking if there was a position for me, essentially, because when I left the work experience I hadn't yet secured a role, and they said, yeah, that's fine, just come in for a chat and we'll see what we can do for you. And so I asked, have they got a role in the corporate department? And they were like, we do, but it's in corporate banking. And I thought, oh my God, I don't know numbers. I'm not gonna do that. But at the end of the day, I'm so glad I did, because when they offered me the banking and finance paralegal position, and I went into it thinking I don't know anything. I didn't know the first thing about finance or banking. But still, they took a chance on me, and I just thought this experience could, I could hate it, but it's still experience, or I could actually love it, and I'm the luckiest person in the world because I've managed to get a role in it, doing it. And so it's very true what you said about whenever, even if the smallest bit of an opportunity comes your way, it might not be what you want, but jump on it anyway, because you have to have those experiences on your CV, and it's all well and good if you got a first or a 2-1 at university and you got the highest grades, but if you actually have never interacted with a client, if you've never had to pick up the phone and introduce yourself to a client and represent a law firm, then it's quite difficult in that sense to get a training contract. Loads of people have done it, but I've definitely felt that nothing bad, only good came out. The fact that I actually ended up taking a role which I was quite unsure about at the time.
And eventually by taking an opportunity, many other opportunities will open. So you have the chance of networking, you have the chance of meeting many people probably in that company who will tell you more about the field. So there are lots of opportunities, just about taking them, and of course trying to think strategically, but take the opportunity. That's fundamental, I think. And and that's what I did during my LLM. So I applied to maybe 30-40 companies and law firms. So I applied both to in-house positions and law firms positions, because I just I wanted some legal experience, and I knew that it was pretty difficult to get straight into what I studied, which is it was M&A. So I mean, you get there after a while, I guess. It's not and
that's the thing, that is so correct, because I'd say anyone listening to this podcast or live who can't make up what they want to do because they haven't had any experience is good experience, in the sense that it gives you direction. I remember wanting to do family law, and I was gutted when I couldn't sit in a family department in my work experience, and it actually really opened my eyes to all the misconceptions I've had about working in a corporate department, and I ended up loving it. So being open to those opportunities is definitely something when you go into a paralegal position.
I agree. And I mean, people always talk about following your passions, but often you don't even know what your passions are when when you're a student,
when
right?
You don't have any experience.
So you need to try.
I know
you need
so
to
many
try
people
different
who don't
things.
know what
Even if you think you don't like that particular job, you can try it, and opportunities will open, and perhaps you will end up liking it, because there are so many aspects of that job that you don't know about, or so many details.
Something might just click, you might like it, or you might end up, I'm sure, because I now worked in a law clinic where I did a bit of family law work, And I thought, oh my gosh, I'm going to love this. And I absolutely hated it. So even having experience that you really didn't dislike, it's still a good experience. And it allowed me to justify when I went into my Shoosmiths interview and they asked me, why do you want to keep doing banking and finance? I could tell them what it is that I liked about commercial law and what it is that I didn't like about other types of law, which made me keep pursuing this option as opposed to having a variety of experiences.
Yes. So returning to my to my how I got into the role, basically during my LLM I applied to many companies and law firms, and I got an offer from the tech company where I am in today, which is a biotechnology company. And I basically work in the legal department of this company as the role is called Associate Contracts Analyst. I joined as an intern, so it was an internship position, and then I went on to the role, the progression. So it's very interesting place. And what about you?
I think that would be a good point of comparison to go into maybe our interview experiences and how the questions perhaps differ for in-house versus law firm paralegal interviews, because I actually applied and there was a really good question I think put up by Lilia, is why did I end up going to Shoosmiths? And to be honest, when I did my work experience in Cardiff, and I was a paralegal in Cardiff doing banking and finance, I just really liked the position. And my whole family lived in Reading, and I knew I wanted to keep doing banking and finance, and I knew that I needed to move closer to home. So I started just literally, it wasn't I want to work at Shoosmiths, it was I want to do banking and finance closer to home. And when I started looking into roles, literally on the day that I started looking, Shoosmiths posted on LinkedIn and on their website that they're looking for banking and finance paralegals. And I saw that pop up in September when I first started in Cardiff, and then later on in November. And then in November, I've decided that I'm going to apply, even though I only had 3 months of experience at that point, and the advertisement said they require 6 to 12 months. I just applied anyway. And it was because of the location, if anything, and the fact that it was a banking and finance position.
That's
interesting. And they were okay with
that. Because you always find, I actually often find the positions, the roles on Google, for example, that have have a date like have been posted a month ago or things like that. So you applied later and you got the position. So so it's worth trying.
Yeah, definitely. And especially because I didn't have experience, and they took me for an interview and they asked me so many questions about specifically what I do and why I want to work there.
Yeah.
And I feel like the training contract applications stages make you think that you have to, even for paralegal positions, you have to articulate why you want to work at that firm and why it's that firm over every other law firm. And I was just upfront and I told them I like being a banking and finance paralegal, but I don't like living in Cardiff. And they were like, okay, fair enough. Like, I didn't have to go into, the values and how they align with my own. Because the fact that I just wanted to do a job so much, that's what they wanted. They wanted someone who was going to be passionate about learning and passionate about doing the role, instead of the whole spiel that you might have to give for a TC interview, which is, why this law firm over every other law firm, etc., etc.
So you would say, the application process for entering a paralegal role are, let's say, are less strict than a training contract, I suppose.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Yeah. It's a lot more focused, I would say. Well, in law firms, I'm not sure how it is in-house, but it's a lot more focused on your competencies. What would you do in this situation? And why this department? And they asked me in my previous job, they asked me in this job, why do you want to do corporate, commercial, or banking and finance law? Because, of long hours, they want to know that you are open to the area. You're going to stay late if you need to stay late. You're passionate and you're open to learning. And I don't think you have, why this department kind of questions in a TC interview where you would maybe talk about, the firm, its culture, its international reach, if it's international law firm, etc.
Yeah. There is a question from Rahul Kumar. He asks you, what are the challenges in banking and finance practice?
I'm going to take that question from a paralegal's perspective because I can't talk for partners. Banking and finance, what are the challenges? I think the biggest challenge was the terminology, because I wasn't a financial thinker. So when I went in and they started using words like facility agreement and charges and security, I had my eyes open like, what are these?
Yeah.
So I think getting used to the terminology, sometimes now I still don't really understand what the partners are talking about if they quickly mention something to do with derivatives or LIBOR or interest rates. So then I have to go back and research, and you have to, from that aspect, the most difficult thing is you can't constantly ask someone, what does this word mean? What does a facility agreement mean? What is this clause? What is it trying to say? You have to do your own research. And terminology is something that maybe in real estate you wouldn't have so much of, but you definitely have in finance. Yeah. I hope that answers your question.
So would you say, well, commercial awareness, the getting into commercial awareness, reading news will help getting into this kind of department and role more generally?
I don't think it plays a huge part, no, because the commercial awareness aspect, and people are not going to like me saying this because they think commercial awareness is the be all and end all of getting any legal position. But as a paralegal, you do a lot of you don't do any negotiation really. You do the very basic drafting, the very basic research. So the very initial elements of a transaction. The nitty-gritty commercial awareness side of things comes when you're a solicitor and a trainee, when you actually start negotiating and drafting the bigger pieces of document, which will have to have very specific wording around interest rates, etc. So I think being aware of news is always good, but I don't think actually getting a role, I didn't have any commercial awareness questions in any of my interviews.
That's great. Yeah.
What about you? Did you have any? Does it play a big part in your role?
Actually, not for accessing it. I would say at interviews, there was an interview. There was an assessment center where we had to do teamwork. There was a case study, but it was not much about. Yeah, it's interesting. It was one full day assessment center where there were other people, and we basically had to play a little bit with it's funny, but Lego. We used the Lego pieces to create a teamwork and come up with solutions without using our hands. We had to point to the pieces to come up with. Yeah, it was funny.
Oh god.
But
yes,
anyway,
you don't get this on your
each company has their own ways of assessment. And after that interview with the members of the team, because in-house has a small team, generally, at least in my case. So that was the assessment. But I wouldn't say that commercial awareness played a big role, because there were no specific questions on that. They were not expecting that a student or a newly graduate person knew about how to interact with customers or how that specific field worked. Also because consider that in-house, if you work in-house, probably what you do has nothing to do with the business itself, because I work in a biotechnology company, and in the legal department they didn't expect us to know about biotechnology, obviously. So that's not something they ask you about. It's more about who you are, and if you can fit into the team, if your personality fits the values of the team, and it's more about the personality. That's more generally.
Really interesting point, that you make, so that you don't have to know much about the biotechnological terminology and all of that. how it works.
Exactly,
Whereas
because then you get internal training on that. So yeah.
Yeah.
And we could move a little bit on the comparison between law firm and in-house. I think we've got many interesting points, and so we can start with the size of the team and the environment, the working environment. So if you want to start with the law firm.
So pre-COVID law firm environment and a national law firm, from my experience, is we've got in the banking and finance team across the nation, we've got about 30 of us, around 30. And within just my team, there's about 15 of us in the Reading office. And a lot of people work from home or work flexible hours. I worked full time, but there was always at least about 8 of us, if not 10 of us in at any one time. And the environment is really nice. You've got this open plan office. I'm just going to give you like a lovely picture of Shoosmiths. Everything's like white and like green, which is my theme. I love it. And it's all really nice and open and airy. And the culture itself, it really fits with the culture, because people can just kind of swivel around their chair and have a quick chat or ask quick questions. And because of the environment being really, really open, you feel that you can just be open with everyone around you and have those conversations and those quick catch-ups. But on that side, I personally work with the London and the South offices, like Solent, directly. So I sometimes help them with a bit of work. But up north, because we're so divided in the bits of work that we do and what part of the UK it affects, we're quite split. So I wouldn't necessarily work with anyone that works in the north, the offices up north. It's more I assist the London office, the Solent office, and then the Reading office.
Yes, and you interact also with other international offices when.
So we actually don't have, we interact with law firms, but the partners tend to do that, or the solicitors. So as paralegal, I've not once interacted with an international law firm yet. I know we are part of something called the WSG, where we partner up with other law firms around the world to get work done, and we refer each other for pieces and bits of work. But as a paralegal, I myself don't have any international interaction.
And what would you say about the interaction with other departments, with other practices, and I don't know, maybe social life, activities?
I guess because of COVID, I've not actually taken part in any activities, which is I'm just absolutely gutted. I came in January, and we obviously just had the Christmas or the Christmas festivities. So I came in at the wrong time because I worked for 2 months and then everything was shut down. So from a social aspect, I can't really comment. But from work within departments, we do quite a bit of work. Depending on what the transaction is, we will work with other departments. Most often it will be the real estate department, where we work alongside real estate, or even construction if it's a refinance of a construction project or a real estate project. Then we are involved with other departments, and we work alongside a big variety of departments, so that we are a full service law firm. And the work, if it's a construction project, then we'll manage the banking and finance aspect of it. The construction department manages the construction elements of it, and then we bring it together for completion and work alongside them to make sure that everything is done. And I feel that we do that quite well. I interact quite a lot with real estate in that way to make sure that we're just chasing each other. You know, have you got this? Yeah, I've got this. You know, you need this bit of paper to register something on the land registry. I need that bit of paper to send to the lender, etc., etc.
Yeah, makes sense, because banking and finance, I mean, it's linked to
it's so linked.
Everything.
Yeah, especially corporate as well. You know, if there's a facility for the a share purchase agreement, there will be a banking aspect to that. If you
Yeah.
are building new buildings and you're taking out a loan for that, there will be a banking and finance aspect. Or a lot of what we've been doing is the coronavirus loan, it's called like CL bills or something like that, and where there's a business interruption because of the coronavirus, and the lenders are giving out a loan to companies, and we will be drafting that. So you work quite a bit with other departments, I would say.
Yeah, it's very
Is
interesting.
that the same as you?
Yeah, in-house is also quite interesting. Is different. Well, we have one legal department. Like it's a small team in comparison to the other teams of the company, because I mean, there's a varied work, but we have a kind of routine. We always deal with the same issues most of the time. We deal with issues that arise from the sale of our products. So because it's a biotechnology company, we sell medical devices throughout Europe. At least our department deals with EMEA, which is Europe, Middle East, and Africa. So we deal with the issues of each of those countries. For example, we are about, I think, 16 or 17 now in the team, and each of us or two of us, for example, in groups deal with one or two countries. So, for example, I deal with Italy and the UK. There's a colleague that deals with Germany and Austria, and so on. So this is
I've got a question for you there. Do you use your language skills?
Yeah, definitely. I have to deal on a daily basis with Italian contracts, for example. So that's cool. Very interesting, and I think that's something, a peculiarity of in-house jobs, because having to work with the business and depending on the products of the business which are sold internationally, you it's more likely that people with multiple language skills will be hired in comparison to a law firm, for example, I suppose, where because
especially,
a law firm has branches and while we are the only department in EMEA, so we need an international team with multiple languages that deals with the issues in each of those countries. So I deal with the Italian contracts, Italian bureaucracy, which I hate, to be honest. It's a very heavy bureaucracy. No, but I'm joking. And also the UK, so contracts in the UK and Italy, and also direct interaction with customers in both countries. So it's very interesting to see that.
Do you then interact with other departments within your one office a lot, or not so much?
Yeah, definitely. So we are in between the sales team, the finance team. There's an R&D department, which is basically research and development, so where all the engineers are and who interact with the headquarters, which is in California, for example, and they deal with the development of our products. So it's like there's a lot of secrecy in that department. We cannot access it, for example, and but we deal with the issues related to the sale of these medical devices, which can be linked to GDPR, data protection, copyrights, mostly contract law and clauses in in the contracts which are non-compliant with our internal policies. So it's in-house work is more about compliance, I would say, with policies that have been established by the headquarters.
Right. Okay.
Yeah. So
that's really interesting, that comparison there, because I would say my role is very transactional. So instead of looking at something that's already been established and seeing how what you are working on applies to what's established, we work towards establishing a certain set of rules, I guess, that lenders and borrowers then rely on if any conflict arises.
Yeah.
So essentially doing it the other way around.
Yeah, definitely, because we've got, it's kind of a constitution, of a statute of our T's and C's, there's that framework that we apply to the transaction, and we need to make sure that the contracts that often the customers propose, because we have our T's and C's, is like we sell our product, but sometimes customers want to impose their T's and C's because the value of the product is very high, so they try to negotiate on that. So we need to check compliance between their contract and our internal policies. So yeah, that's.
I guess that's a nice point that we could go on to, is what kind of client interaction do you have with that? Because speaking from a not in-house perspective, I get a lot of client interaction in the sense that I'm always every single day will have a call with someone from the other office who's acting for maybe the borrower, or the lending side, the opposite to who we're acting for, or the borrower or lender themselves and our client. I constantly interact with. I'm chasing them or sending documents out to them, or they call me for a query. Do you have that interaction with your clients?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I would say that's one of the perks, if you want to call it like that, in in-house role, because the team is small. You will have a better chance to deal with customers directly, and you will be independent in dealing with them with proper training. So, for example, I am working on Italy with a senior attorney, but when he's on holiday, for example, I'm alone dealing with Italian customers, and but I base my approach, my knowledge on our internal framework. So it's very difficult to be wrong when advising something. Yeah. So
that's something I don't have the luxury of, because I'm at this point, and when you're a trainee as well, you are constantly supervised, because you're negotiating such important documents. You need an extra pair of eyes, not just an associate, but even senior associate and partner most of the time. So a great example is that recently 3 of my colleagues have gone on holiday, and I got each of their handover with some matters that I needed to run. And some of the matters just completely went on pause, because as a paralegal, you need the oversight, and you cannot make amends to and say okay to changes in contractual documents because of the major implications that they have afterwards, when obviously you've completed.
When do you have this kind of independence? At what stage in the career? From trainee solicitor already, or from associate, like to approve, to finalize a contract, for example? Or
I think you always need a partner's approval to be able to complete, and that is just an internal process. But from solicitor, I think when you qualify, you then have a lot more autonomy and responsibility when you are negotiating. From a paralegal perspective, what my role entails, it's, let's say, if we get a set of charges in, or corporate authorizations like board minutes and direct certificates, I look through and I basically do the initial review of the documents, and I flag and I draw up a red line of what I think has gone wrong or what I think needs amending. And then an associate will cross-check that and say, actually, I think you're right there, or no, that's fine, that's not an issue. And I've had that last week, where I reviewed a set of board minutes and I sent it off to the partner, and I said, these are the things that I want to flag that I don't think match up with the actual agreement that we've got. And she said, these couple of ones are good spots, well done, but actually this one can stay as it is. Which if I would have made that mistake if I was going through the document. That's why, as a paralegal, because you don't have the experience, even the very basic documents, you can't really negotiate. Whereas what I do have the responsibility of is project management, essentially. So as a banking and finance paralegal, You keep track of all the documents that have come in, all the documents that have been agreed and signed, executed, and sent off to certain parties. So what my role mostly entails is keeping track of all of these documents per transaction. So, and that's not me being told, we've agreed this document, you can sign it off on the checklist. That it has to be on me to keep track of all the correspondence and make sure that I'm flagging where there's a document outstanding and someone wants to complete, or if there's a signature missing, checking all the original documents that we've got them and we're ready to complete. So it's more of a project management side that I've got the responsibility of.
Yeah, I think it's very interesting, the point on the approval chain, because in-house, even in a junior role, I'm more independent on the final approvals, because there's an established process, and I can go wrong, but it's more difficult, and and there's, at least in the case of my company, which is, by the way, called Illumina, and we are kind of leaders in this sector, so we know that there's very little competition, so I think that leads also to more, less stress, maybe
less pressure,
less pressure, and because you know that the customer needs your product and you're gonna sell it anyway, eventually.
I guess
there's also not that big focus on attention to detail, because on contracts you have to be careful, but in generally speaking, there's not this double check system, because we are the ones that lead the transaction, if you know what I mean. So while in a law firm you have a lot of competition, there are lots of law firms out there, and a customer sees a mistake and can just say, okay, I'm gonna move to another one. At least
I guess that's a really great comparison there that we can draw, because we spoke about this previously, and it was really weird for me to hear that you don't clock your time in 6-minute intervals, which at law firms you do. Even at paralegal level, you often charge for your time. And a huge aspect of my role that you said you don't have is actually clocking your time. So in my role, whatever I do, if I read an email, if I call a client, if I've got an incoming call, I need to quickly pause and start my timer. And it's to make sure that every single thing I do every single day is clocked onto the system, and then we bill the client according to the amount of hours that we clocked on that matter. So if they decide to send us a really, really long email that is really confusing, it's going to take us, they're going to know that that's going to take us longer to put together and to respond to than if they had laid out their question easily. So from that aspect, we are always acting really efficiently and really quickly to keep costs low and to keep competitive.
There's a lot of time huge awareness.
Very, very much. Even if I remember when I first started and I asked my supervisor, I was like, can I sit on this call? And he was like, no, that's a waste of the client's time, because you'll need to clock what you're doing every single 6 minutes. If you're clocking that you sat in on a meeting that you actually didn't really need to be there for, although it's great experience, it doesn't give anything to the client, so we're not gonna. And that is completely fair, because that's how you keep your costs low.
That's an incredible comparison, because we don't have any such thing as a time.
I'm so jealous.
Time constraints, time restrictions. We do have deadlines which are related to the sale of products for example, in tender procedures, in public procedures, but these are quite long deadlines sometimes, I would say, and we can extend them if we think it's necessary to complete the negotiation for a contract. So it's incredible that you calculate each.
It's a weird concept to get used to. I remember the first week I worked there, at my very first law firm, no one told me about the 6-minute thing. So I didn't actually clock my time for the first 2 weeks that I was there. And then I got an email from the secretary in my team, like, what have you been doing the past 2 weeks? And I kind of like wrote it down for her, what I've done. I thought it was a really weird question. And she was like, thank you for telling me, but you need to clock your time. And then they showed me actually how to use it and how to do that, which was a really strange concept, because you just, being a waitress previously might have affected this, but I just try and do things as quickly as possible. I don't think I need to write down anywhere what I've done. I think it's just like, I've done it, it doesn't matter. But you actually, for billing reasons, you need to be clocking your time, which is quite the thing to get used to. It's quite difficult.
Yeah, I can imagine. It's a very interesting approach. And I'll just get back to another question that we have before we move on. So what advice would you give to a young aspiring solicitor that wants to enter the banking and finance practice in particular?
Oh, the banking and finance practice in particular. Oh gosh, it's a difficult one. But I think you need to be really good with people. And I say that because a lot of what I see banking and finance solicitors do, even though I personally don't do it often yet, but a massive aspect of the role is being able to interact with clients, being able to pick up the phone and being really personable. And I think that is the biggest. Obviously, you need to know the financial elements of it, and that's all the very, very obvious. You need to have the commercial awareness. Everyone knows this. But I think what really differentiates my team from maybe the tax team is that they are all really easy to make a good conversation with, really easy to get along with. And that's how you attract clients. That's how you keep your big banking clients interested, and they know they can trust you because you can have good, transparent conversations with them. So especially in banking and finance, a lot of the terminology, especially if you're going to like the legal banking and finance side of things, a lot of the terminology is difficult. As a lawyer, you need to be able to say what the law is, what the clients are concerned with, these big banking clients, but you need to actually put it in like really plain language. And if you can't speak in like a really basic language about very difficult terminology and concepts, you're not going to be able to grab their attention, and you're not going to be able to retain them but this is completely from personal experience, because everyone I've worked with, the partner and the senior associate in my Cardiff office, my first job, they went to a lot of networking events. They went to dinners and to the pub with clients and for lunches. So from that aspect, if you're not a people person, it will be quite difficult to be a banking and finance lawyer, I think.
Yeah, I can imagine. Yeah, you need to be, diplomatic. You need to be open-minded to customers, to their requests. And well, this is something that relates to in-house work, because you need you deal with customers since the beginning, since the junior level, I would say. And it's very important to keep a good relationship and to be fast at the responding, and to be diplomatic on the phone, for example, at negotiations. I think that's actually a very, very important component of the job. The human side, of it. For example, in a deal, we need to when I negotiate clauses in a contract, for example, it often happens that the conversation, for example, a Zoom call with the client is joined by our engineers, by our sales representatives, because they have also control on the transaction, and they want to make sure that the final approver don't mess up, because they worked really hard on attracting the customer, and so there's an involvement from different departments on that side, and they want to make sure that you get used to the fact that you need to be open-minded and apply some kind of
Yeah.
diplomatic approach with them, because
Yeah.
Eventually client is always the client. So
you need to always think, do
Yeah.
they not just is it in their best commercial interest what you are advising them of doing, but do they understand you? So many and I remember my very first experience was clarity, because my very first experience was, and this was actually for lawyers, that I had to draft a quick article. I can't even remember what it was. I think it was on e-signatures and their impact and code, whatever. I can't remember. It was 2 years ago, and it was my second work experience in the commercial seat of Harrison Clark Rickaby's that I got a VAC scheme for, and I returned this article to the partner, and she literally took a red pen and she was like, no, you wrote this like an essay, this, and like crossed the whole thing out.
Wow.
Helped me rewrite it, and she was like, return this to me, I know this is the last day of your VAC scheme, email it back to me, I'll have a look for you, but make sure you complete it, because you cannot write in essay style language anymore. And that is the first and biggest thing I learned, is you need to have clarity in what you are saying. Bankers, even though they are very, very smart individuals, and your clients and people who are borrowing, but you have to be able to break down legal concepts to them.
Yeah, I mean, how do you deal with that part of the job? Because in banking and finance, for example, is such a difficult field and complex. I mean, if the customer comes to you and asks a very detailed question about what they are doing, I mean, you need to show that you understand them, obviously. So the answer comes from the partner who knows that specific field, or how does that work?
For us, it depends on the question. If it's something incredibly technical to do with the contract itself and I can't answer it, I'll do a bit of research and see what the area is. And if I still don't understand, even, it's a good sign. If you don't understand the question itself, you're probably not the person to answer it. Yeah. But I have had questions before where I understand what they're asking me, but I don't know the answer. I can't think of a specific example right now, but I've just said on the phone to them, let me come back to you in a couple of minutes. I just need to really have a look into this and see what your agreement or contract says. I'll come back to you in the next, by the end of the day or in the next hour if it's urgent. And they tend to appreciate that, because if you said something on the phone that you weren't actually sure about, that can have really, really big implications. Let's say the other week, one of our clients, well, they're not our client, but one of the borrowers that we're acting with signed a share certificate, and because of COVID, the signing for various legal documents, the signing requirements have changed. And this person called me and said, can I sign in this way using an electronic signature and witness it through a wetting signature? And in my mind, you can see the person signing electronically, so why wouldn't you be able to sign in wet ink, because you're still witnessing it? But in my mind, I was like, I'm sure it's fine. But I said to the person, look, I actually need to research into it, because I'm not 100. I can't give you a 100% sure answer. So I went away. I told them I'd get back to them in an hour. I did my research. I checked it with the associate, and I sent them the bits of research, the articles that I found, and just made sure I could get them to agree that I do have it right, and then called the client back. So it's because the implications are so big of what you're saying sometimes. If it's not obvious, if she asked me, can I witness it, or can I not have this document witnessed, or can I not put the occupation or whatever it is, then it would have been an obvious answer. But when it's not, you do your own research and then you cross-check. It's
very, very interesting process. And okay, so let's move on to a very, very interesting and hot topic, I think: work-life balance between in-house and law firm. So what would you say?
Would you like to lead on this one?
Okay. So, well, Work-life balance, I would say in-house is pretty much a 9 to 5 job. Generally speaking, you have your tasks and you're pretty flexible in organizing your tasks, and as long as you respect the deadlines, you can say, okay, today I can only finish at 4 p.m. because I know that tomorrow I will be able to deliver the work done. So there's a lot of flexibility. Generally, I would say I work 9 to 5, 9 to 6, probably. So it's pretty good. I can't complain at all. In-house is good because the company, your client is your company, but then you have, I mean, you lead the transaction because the product is yours and the customer wants it. So I think that's the advantage of companies. There's a lot of flexibility on that side. So
is that true for more senior members of staff as well, or is that because you're a more junior paralegal?
That's a good question. I think senior members have a bit more pressure because they have to deal with big decisions in the sale of products and also at the international level, and they have meetings with branches in other countries, for example. So there's a lot of jet lag involved for them, and I interact sometimes with directors and with senior members of the company, and I see them traveling a lot, and it's be very interesting life.
They're quite busy.
I think they work very very hard. I mean, they work long hours, longer than junior members. Yeah. But in general, in-house, I think is there's a good, more relaxed work-life balance in general.
Yeah. I think the same can be said for Shoosmiths. There's never a time where you're required to work outside of your hours, even if my team is quite good in that sense, because even when they ask me, it might be very specific and they might need a bit of work done by that day, or they emailed me, and it happened actually 3 times on Friday where I got an email and they said, on Monday, can you do this? Because when someone says, can you quickly draft this MRO1 form, that normally means, can you do it now? But they're really good at saying, I need this done by X amount of time, which lets me as paralegal schedule it into my time. I've had the completions when it's a big transaction and there's a strict deadline. You will be in until, the latest I've been in until is 10:30, but that wasn't with Shoosmiths. The latest I've been working with Shoosmiths is only, I think, 8 o'clock, 8:30. So actually that's very rare, and I'd say 8 times out of 10 I'll be finishing 10-15 minutes after my official finishing time, because I like to just make sure everything's closed off and I've got my to-do list for the next day. So I think work-life balance wise, Shoosmiths is really good, but the senior members often won't be out on time, but that's just expected for a national law firm. They are very busy, and I think everyone's initially taken the fact that they can work from home. They were really open to it because they sometimes might not get that exact work-life balance, but it's not, you can't compare it to maybe an international law firm where the hours are crazy, so it's nowhere near that.
That's an interesting point. And I have a statement now. So the majority of skills earned in a law firm practice can be translated to suit, let's say, an in-house position, but not vice versa. So the skills that you learn in a law firm can be applied to my role and my role to yours, for example. On my side, I can say I kind of agree, because what I learn is specifically tailored to the sale of the certain products. So that becomes quite a routine, and because you have one type of clients, for example, in the biotechnology sector, that means that you inevitably deal with kind of more or less the same things, although sometimes you can have new issues coming up like GDPR, data protection, contracts. There's some competition with other companies, so competition law. But generally, it's always the same kind of bubble. Let's say there's less variety of work in comparison to law firms, I believe, because you always have new customers, new clients that come up with different issues. So from what I see, you have the opportunity to learn from different perspectives, and but
I think either way, skills are transferable though. So if you are really good at project management in an in-house role, then that'll be really valued at a law firm as well. Even though you might not have such a multifaceted area of work. So let's say the borrowers we act for can be everything from, as you said, biotech companies. They can be construction companies. They can produce, they can be vets. They can be, absolutely anything. So you might not get that in an in-house role, but I think either way, the skills that you pick up can be directly transferred and used.
Yeah, it's a very, very good point. And there's another question from the chat. So what is the role of artificial intelligence in banking and finance practice? So very, interesting, futuristic.
Wow. Wow. Okay. Well, you say futuristic actually, but I know law firms like Phil Fisher who've already adapted artificial intelligence, and it is a great and relevant question that I don't know a lot about. So I just kind of, caveat this with the fact that I don't know a lot about it. Yeah. But what I do know is artificial intelligence is and will play a huge role in banking and finance by way of every other department and cross-checking documents. How it's relevant to banking and finance. And firstly, it speeds up the process of reviewing a document. But the way that it's relevant to banking and finance specifically is because of the LIBOR changes coming up. So LIBOR is the interest rate that many banks use across the world to set for the interest rate within their commercial agreement. Yeah. That is changing, and that's being eradicated in 2021. We are no longer using it because it's not got like an underlying market. And I think artificial intelligence will really help review something ridiculous like $400 trillion worth of facility agreements which are tied to the LIBOR rate. So instead of, what I mean by that is a lot of agreements will say the interest rate for this loan will be LIBOR plus base rate, or LIBOR or base rate, or whatever it is, and make that reference. Because LIBOR isn't going to exist in 2022, you're going to have to look through almost every single contract which was which matures before that date, and either redraft it, restate it, amend it. So doing that, having an artificial intelligent computer piece of technology then will really help speed up that process of actually reviewing documents and help review mass documents for mass reviews. So I think Phil Fisher's Condor is one you might want to look into. That is an AI platform that they use for mass document review. I hope that answers your question.
Okay. Very interesting. And in-house we also have new tools for example, contract management. I think it's because they felt the need to align the sales team, for example, with the contracts team, the legal team. So they are introducing this kind of artificial intelligence, but it's not that prominent as law firm, I would say, yet. So we will see. Yeah. And yeah, we can touch very briefly upon job security, for example, taking into account this situation that, yeah, we talked about it earlier, the COVID-19 situation and job security in-house and law firm.
Unprecedented comes into mind. I don't know how many times I've read that in an email.
Yeah, very unpredictable, yeah, but for example, in-house I can say that we didn't have any saying it is straightforwardly, we didn't fire anyone because of COVID-19, because we sell a product that people need even during these times, because it's a medical product. So yeah, we haven't been affected that much. Actually, in some regions, I would say the product has been sold even more because of COVID-19 emergency situations. So it's very interesting to see that, for example, yeah, some companies I would say kind of thrived in this situation. Not too much, but there was some kind of profit behind that. And some other companies, some law firms needed to put their employees on furlough, and you can confirm that.
Yeah, I think it's a very unique situation to be in as a law firm, simply because you can't treat everyone fairly or everyone in the same way, because work streams will be completely differently affected. So whereas M&A activity has gone down, which affected us as the banking and finance department, and construction projects have paused, and there's been a lot of completions which got deferred, or people just couldn't go and sign documents or have the completion that they wanted, so they deferred it. It really did affect us. Whereas I know our real estate, our employment, and one other department that I can't seem to remember right now, but I know employment is absolutely thriving within our law firm, because they've had such an influx of cases. So private client definitely was impacted better than the banking and finance sector, but we are slowly but surely getting back to normal working levels. So yeah, as someone that has been furloughed, we have felt the negative impacts of COVID. And what a lot of students tend to ask me, and a lot of graduates as well, is how do I think it has impacted their job prospects? And what I think it has majorly impacted is the fact that they won't be able to graduate and go straight into a role, which I know many people want to do, and it's what you and I have done. But it's because there has been a hiring freeze momentarily. What I can see working within a law firm, though, is that levels of work are picking back up. So it is just, positive that we can maybe unfreeze the hiring situation in the future, but as to when that will happen and when law firms will be brave enough to make that step is questionable and quite uncertain. Yeah,
definitely. And I'll get back very quickly on the questions from the chat. It's a quite hot topic. It's again about artificial intelligence and the change. How will AI change the way legal professionals work in the future? So it's a very interesting questions, and I've read about that in a book which is called Tomorrow's Lawyers. By the way, it's an incredible book.
Yeah, I've heard of that. I need to read it.
Yeah, from Richard Susskind, and I mean, he mentioned in the book that courts might go virtual. There will be all these tools integrated into the legal profession, but there's also the extreme view of replacing lawyers with AI. But I mean, what do you think about that?
Personally, I don't think that will ever happen. Purely because of what I said earlier, which is the way you keep competitive as a law firm, and the skill that you need to have within banking and finance is to be really personable, and to have great client communication skills, and build those professional relationships with your clients. AI can't do that. AI can't take them out for lunch and have a chat and and just have a catch up and stay in touch with them. Or during COVID, I know something that the partners have been doing is checking in with their clients to see how they're doing. AI can't replace that human interaction. And that is something I know Shoosmiths really pride themselves on, is our, I think it's not a motto, but our value is, we want to be the UK's leading law firm for client experience. And client experience partly comes down to how efficient you are, but AI won't ever be able to pick up the phone and explain something in really, really simple language that is, that how to explain to that particular client. Because with some clients, you can be a lot more technical. With some clients, especially if they're a borrower and this is the first loan they're borrowing and they have no clue what's going on, you need to sit them down and take them through the whole process. I don't think AI can do that.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, you can probably at some point create an automation system for corporations where they always ask, I mean, it's a routine and they ask the same, kind of delivery of the same result. But with as you say, borrowers or people who are not acquainted with certain fields, certain terms, is probably human interaction. I believe it's essential. So we'll see.
I mean, and if you think of it from a client perspective as well, I think it's just me working at Shoosmith specifically, but I'm not sure how international law firms do it. But if I were the client, I would personally want to pay a reasonable price for somewhere where if I go in, I feel welcome and I'm treated nicely. And if I pick up and I ask my lawyer a really stupid question, then they don't get arsy with me. They actually sit me down and explain exactly what it is, even though it might be the simplest thing in the world. Whereas you can also pay more for incredible, really quick service, which integrates AI, and you get the contract done really quickly, but no interaction. And if you have a question, no one is there to answer it. You need to do your own research. Or alternatively, someone that's there to answer it, and they don't answer it nicely and they don't treat you nicely, it just goes down to that whole client experience thing. You wanna have a good experience, which is why people then return to the same law firm.
Yeah, and related to that, the last question, from banking and finance, cryptocurrencies. How much do you deal with that, and how do you see that kind of field growing? So fintech. Is there I know it's very difficult. I mean, I have no idea, to be honest, because I don't work with the fintech, but
neither do I. So fintech, there is the law firm I used to work at, and just to put it into perspective, the difference, fintech comes into more like the insurance element of things and the automated element of things. Whereas I personally have never worked with fintech companies. It's not something I can comment on, unfortunately, because I deal with borrower and lender. Fintech is another branch of finance that is completely unrelated to
All right. So it's not related to your banking and finance, which is more a classical banking and finance products. But I know law firms who specialize in banking and finance, like Bakers or McFarlane's, who have set departments for derivatives and trading and fintech and all of those different things. Because that's high finance is
whoever's asking this question, I've got someone I know who is a fintech paralegal, so if they want to drop me a message at Paralegally Speaking, then I can put them in touch.
Probably we can organize one of the next lives with that person. Would be interesting to know about fintech.
Potentially. I don't know how open he would be because he doesn't have an Instagram, but we'll see.
Okay. So we've got a few more points left. So about career growth in-house and law firm. What would you say about that? Well, in a law firm you have a structure that you follow, but
That's a misconception, I think.
Okay.
There is a set path that you do follow, which is what they always push down your throat as paralegal trainee.
Exactly.
And qualified. It's difficult because a lot of people assume that if you work as a paralegal in a law firm, you'll become trainee at that law firm. You can become trainee at that law firm. It's true, but it's not automatic. A lot of law firms tend to favour their paralegals because they've gone through the recruitment process. I know Bakers do, but you still have to do the assessment centre. And I know with Shoosmiths they are fair. So myself and all the other paralegals in my team across different offices had to go through and do the application, and then had to go through and then do the video interview, which is why I didn't get through, even though I worked for them.
It's internal.
So you even if you're internal, if you're not internal, don't be frightened if you go to an open day and 75% of the people there are paralegals, because just the fact that they're paralegals does not mean they're going to get the job, which is what I thought always, but it's not true. So I think that's kind of like you go through the same process,
it's
but just by becoming paralegal, it's not guaranteed.
I would say that's not the case in-house. Probably if you get in as a junior, like paralegal or intern, it's very likely that you will stay because there's no additional assessment for the next role. You just get in an internal promotion. You are effectively an employee, a permanent employee of the company. So it's very interesting that there's this division, as if you are not yet an employee that's able to progress, in the next stage. And basically, and they want you, I suppose, to get to the same standard of all the other applicants, and then all those successful.
And
so it's a classic training contract process for everyone.
Especially when you've got 3,400 applicants that Shoosmiths had, it is very difficult to then take your paralegals and not make them go through that, because maybe there's 25 or 20 paralegals applying for 12 training contracts. There's a lot more paralegals in the firm that there are training contracts every single year. So you just can't favour them, because there'll be other candidates coming through who might have 6 or 7 year paralegal experience, but it's just not with your firm. So I somewhat agree with Shoosmiths in that sense, that they may put everyone through the whole process bit. But I think people do also tend to forget that being a trainee is not the only way to qualify. So something that I'm very open to and I've been researching is like the Silex route, because I'm pretty certain I want to qualify into banking and finance, having done it for a year. I love it, and I'm not really too interested in trying out other areas. I wouldn't be gutted if I didn't get to and I qualified into banking. I would be really, really happy. So like, there's other ways to qualify, and that's, TC isn't the set route. You can also do it through Silex.
Would you suggest to someone who wants to enter banking and finance specifically to only apply for those roles or related roles, in a way as to avoid maybe specializing in other fields and then find it difficult to switch to banking and finance? Would you suggest to just go straight into that since the beginning? Although it's difficult to choose often.
I mean, when you don't have the experience, you just kind of get dropped in somewhere. I wouldn't say you got a lot of choice. I didn't, because I applied for a corporate paralegal position and they said, no, but we've got this for you, and you just accept it. So I was really lucky because I like that area. But I know so many people who have worked as a real estate paralegal and then applied for another paralegal in a family law paralegal position. And even though they are completely different roles, the skills are so transferable. Being a paralegal is being a paralegal. Although they are so different, you'll get a lot of skills and just client contact and responsibility and stuff that you can. So I don't think you if you think to yourself, I want to be a family lawyer, then the only way to get there is for your first ever position to be a family paralegal position.
And on the point of view of commercial awareness, what's the which role is more, let's say, gives some more a boost to your commercial awareness? That was one question, like in-house or in a law firm. For me, I would say that in-house we have the chance of interacting with customers, so we understand their needs, like more on that specific field we deal with. So in my case, biotechnology, or anyway health science sector. But what about the law firm? Do you get more exposure to different environments, dynamics?
I think you do, but then again, this is quite a difficult one to answer, purely because when I work for a client or work for a client and the other party, you don't go into too much research. So I think it's good to give you a really broad commercial awareness, because I'll be acting for like a lot of different companies, dealing with a lot of different things. So you've got to know a little bit about each company and what they do and how they're affected currently. But you never really go in depth, other than you go into depth on the finance side of things, which is really important. And like I said about LIBOR and interest rates and all of the changes happening in the sector. What we do at Shoosmiths is we have these know-how sessions, and once a month or once every 2 weeks, I think, we all come together, and then one person will give like a big update on a certain area of law. So when I did mine, I'm really interested in sustainable finance and green finance. So I did a big update on what I think the future is of sustainable finance. And that is just a whole other topic in another world. But so we keep up to date in that sense, but not having experience in-house, I don't know the level to which it differs.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I've learned a lot interacting with customers who are mainly, I would say, doctors and engineers. So it's a very interesting, let's say, audience to interact with, because you learn a lot about, what they want, how they approach things in their field, how they think,
and you've got that depth of knowledge for that sector, whereas I would have like a broader range, but without.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I would say that's the main difference. And I think we can conclude with the last few things. That is, for example, a deal or work in general that you've particularly liked as a paralegal.
One that I particularly liked was a construction refinance that we worked on. I'm not allowed to say for who, I don't think. But yeah, it was just, there was a hotel being built, and we did the refinance of a facility that the borrower, the construction company, took out in 2018, and we basically refinanced it and topped it up. And that was really good because I was acting directly for a senior associate, and I had so much, and it was in the first 2-3 weeks of me starting, and it was one which took about 2 months to complete, but I literally started it from the beginning right through to the end, and it was it was the transaction where I actually got everything that was going on. When I first started, in my first 6 months, I was just kind of like working on little bits and bobs here and there and never like following a transaction through. But that was my very first one, and I think I particularly enjoyed it because the directors of the people who we were acting for were so nice and would call me and would thank me for my work, and if they had a question, they would direct it to me as if I knew. And they were just really nice people to work with, and I think that's really what made it. Is it wasn't a particularly easy transaction. There were a lot of moving elements to it, but it was quite challenging, and I really like it when I'm being challenged and pushed to my limit. And
the people you learn a lot when you have challenging tasks, and you learn
a lot fast.
Yeah, you have to. Yeah,
What
there's
about
more
you?
pressure. Yeah. For me, yeah, it's interesting. Like, for example, the other day I had to conclude a contract that was quite urgent, and it was for the delivery of this medical device to a hospital, and they needed it for analysis of DNA to study COVID-19.
Oh my
So
god.
yeah, and we were involved in that. Like, we've sent many of these instruments, which are basically machines that analyze DNA. So I don't know if you heard about the ancestry, which is basically the analysis of your DNA to find your ancestors and your family.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, so that's
Yeah.
what we do basically. And
That's
but also,
awesome.
yeah, for research, analysis of DNA and the genetics. So it's very very interesting involvement with the biotechnology and biohacking as well. There's this very interesting
I've
fields.
heard about that. Yeah.
Yeah,
That's
and
awesome.
yeah. Um, so yeah, there was this negotiation with the customer, and they become very creative sometimes when they want to amend the clauses of a contract. For example, this customer wanted, for example, we have a fixed term warranty for the device, which is generally 12 months, for example. And the customer said, okay, but what if the machine stops working for, let's say, more than 10 days? I want an extension of the warranty for 6 months. And I said, okay, no, that's not something we allow. It's like you buy Apple and you buy a MacBook and you ask for an extension of the warranty. Like, okay, they come up with all these things. So I had to meet our engineers in a call, and I had to explain the customer that these are not our standard terms, like in a very diplomatic way, because
Yeah.
although sometimes they ask something unreasonable, you still need to be diplomatic. So
Yeah. Still needs to be nice.
Yeah, met these. There was an interesting conversation with these two doctors from an Italian hospital, and our engineers, and we negotiated this contract. So it's very interesting because you see the interaction with customers, how they react when there's a bit of pressure, when you are negotiating the clauses of the contract and they don't agree with what you're saying, but they don't tell you. They are not straightforward in saying that. So, well, yeah,
Everyone tries to like be nice.
You develop your negotiation skills that way, definitely.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. And well, I think we it's almost 1.5 hours we've been talking. So.
Oh god.
Yeah, sorry guys, but it was very interesting.
Thank you to those who stuck around.
To compare. Yeah. Thanks guys. Thanks Raul, Marco, and others that they've been there since the beginning, I think. So and also Lauren. Yeah. So I think we can conclude here, although there will be many other things I think to talk about. But
definitely. Maybe in another one.
Yeah. Thanks guys, and keep following us, because in August we'll have a speaker from TED Talk. So he's a public speaking coach, and he will tell us all the tips and tricks about public speaking. So